Thursday, December 11, 2014. This is your morning edition on I-24 News. Coming up later today, Palestinian Minister Ziad Abu Ain dies after a confrontation with Israeli forces in the West Bank. And with its mission in Syria nearly complete, the OPCW sets its sight on Israel. And later on the show, the Sundance Film Festival announces its 2015 short film lineup. Well, first of all, good morning, and thank you for joining us. I'm Yael Avi, and we begin with the latest unrest in the Middle East. A senior minister in the government of Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas is dead following a violent confrontation with Israeli forces in the occupied West Bank. Ziad Abu Ain, who dealt with the issue of Israeli settlements and the separation wall, died en route to hospital after being involved in clashes in the village of Tomarsia near Ramallah. Palestinian Authority says Abu Ain was joining a group of Palestinian protesters who were planning to plant olive trees near an Israeli settlement close by when they were confronted by approximately 30 Israeli soldiers who fired tear gas and sound grenades at the demonstrators. Now, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas has called for 3 days of mourning in the Palestinian Authority. He also described the act as barbaric, said that steps would be taken after a full investigation. Israeli Defense Minister Moshe Ya'alon said the IDF will investigate the incident, which comes at a time of heightened tensions between Israel and the Palestinians following months of violence and unrest in Jerusalem, Tel Aviv, and the Israeli-occupied West Bank. Joining us on the phone now is IDF spokesperson for the international media, Colonel Lieutenant Peter Lerner. Peter, good morning to you.
Good morning, yeah.
Well, first of all, what happened?
Well, the incident itself is still under investigation, but what we do know currently is there was a demonstration that seemed to be planned, and it developed into an altercation between the protesters there and the security forces, the border police, and the IDF that were on site. Now, their mission clearly was to prevent an exchange with the civilian communities, the Israeli civilian community there, and try and maintain the public order. It developed into an altercation that led to the unfortunate death of Ziad Abu Ain, and indeed the Israeli establishment and the defense minister itself has also expressed sorrow over this death.
Well, go ahead.
Moving on to the aftermath of that, what we're currently doing, of course, is the joint investigation and looking into what actually caused the death. And I think what's most important, and I heard what you were leading on with, to contain the situation. We need to work together with the Palestinians in order to prevent an escalation and contain the situation.
No,
so
that goes without saying. I'm
violence.
sure everybody wants it to be contained in one way, shape, or form, but I think the anger must be understood. We're looking at, at footage of the incident itself. Palestinians claim that the protesters, demonstrators were there to plant olive trees, and, from the actual footage that we're seeing, tear gas, sound grenades, why were those used before anything really happened?
Well, when you carry out a demonstration, there are elements of crowd control which are accepted. If you're marching on an Israeli community, there is a justification for using crowd control means. When the forces on the ground were trying to coordinate where the olive trees could actually be planted so that they could carry out their protests. But unfortunately, it led into this heated exchange, which in the aftermath of that, Abu Ain had passed away. So the intention to go to a Israeli community, plant trees, is to provoke a situation. Now, the forces are there to maintain public order. And as the footage that we've seen and the exchange that we've seen, clearly it's a heated exchange there. And that is currently what we're
Peter,
investigating.
you can understand when people around the world are looking at several dozens of Palestinians holding flags and trees and being confronted by military. Not only does it not look good, but it looks disproportionate.
I think perhaps, and I don't agree with the premise of your question at all. I think when people are marching on an Israeli community, the Israeli security forces have to prevent that from developing. And the short exchange of a heated exchange there at the point actually shows that there was a push and shove, and people were shouting, and there was a few stun grenades. It was relatively, compared to the violent demonstrations that we've seen in recent months, it wasn't that heavy-handed, I would say. The aftermath of it, of course, is tragic, and that's not what's supposed to happen. And that is why, indeed, we are investigating, looking into the circumstances of what actually was the cause of death. And finally, indeed, we are working together with the Palestinian security apparatus in order to calm the situation down, try and prevent an escalation.
Which leads me to my next point.
Stop the cycle of violence. I think what's really important here is we need to be hearing that type of message also from the Palestinian side, and not just Israel saying, oh, we don't want an escalation, because it could get a lot worse.
Well, clearly that's the fear, I believe, on everybody's, but every side is taking their own steps. When you said that you are cooperating with your Palestinian counterparts, so that's still going on, because I think that's the million-dollar question in everybody's mind this morning. Is the cooperation in the West Bank between the Palestinian Authority and the IDF still continuing this morning?
We have extensive security coordination with the Palestinian security apparatus.
Okay.
It has been like that for the last 6 years,
right.
6 or 7 years now already. It's a core component and a mutual interest of both the Palestinians and Israel that this is maintained, because it is good for the security situation.
And as you mentioned,
that is something that is required to continue.
And as you mentioned, investigation underway, which hopefully everybody will be joining in on. Peter Lerner of the IDF, Lieutenant Colonel Peter Lerner, spokesperson for the international media. Thank you for joining us this morning. We're joined in studio by I-24 News Middle East analyst Ali Waqid. Ali, good morning to you. And by Haaretz senior defense correspondent Amir Oren. Good morning to you as well.
Yeah, good morning.
Before we break it down, let's take a look at the event exactly in the following report and break it down from there.
A dramatic incident Wednesday is raising fears of yet another escalation in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. Palestinian Minister Ziad Abu Ain died en route to a hospital in Ramallah after clashing with an Israeli border patrol officer in the West Bank. The minister, who was in charge of the settlements and annexation wall portfolio, was attending a protest against the separation fence to mark the Human Rights Day. Reports as to the cause of the minister's death have varied throughout the day, highlighting the volatile nature of the affairs. Palestinian media outlets said Abu Ain was killed and beaten with the butt of a gun. But according to an IDF spokesman, the minister suffered a heart attack after inhaling tear gas. Video and photos from the scene show an Israeli soldier grabbing his neck and pushing him, further igniting sentiments of oppression by Palestinians. An Israeli doctor will join Jordanian pathologists in carrying out the autopsy on the body. Meanwhile, Palestinian President Mahmoud Abbas responded saying this is a barbaric act and Palestinians will not be silent. He called for 3 days of mourning, and the authority said it may cease security cooperation with Israel. The announcement comes at a particularly sensitive time, less than 1 month after Israel and the authority began to collaborate on the reconstruction of Gaza project. According to Hamas sources, Palestinian Foreign Minister Riyad al-Maliki said Israel will, quote, pay for the killing of Ziad Abu Ain, sparking fears on both fronts of an act of retaliation. Abu Ain killed 2 teenagers in a terror attack in Tiberias in 1979 and was since released in a deal. Following his release, he became a prominent member of the Fatah Revolutionary Council.
Ali Waqid, I want to start with you. It's fairly quiet right now in the West Bank. Everybody was terrified yesterday, I think, on both sides. This is going to escalate immediately. What can this lead to?
Well, I'm not sure that it's going to escalate. We need to wait for the funerals, which will take place later on today. But Yael, we are in a very political moment in Israel, and this is also reflecting on the Palestinian reaction. The Palestinians who are feel very frustrated with the situation and very angry, who don't want the escalation to serve the campaign of Benjamin Netanyahu and of the right-wing parties in Israel, and this has been taken into consideration. I talked with Palestinian seniors yesterday, and they said for the first time we feel that the Israeli public really is fed up with Benjamin Netanyahu, and we are not going to serve Benjamin Netanyahu campaign. This is why the rage of the Palestinian will be reduced. We might see confrontation, but there will be local and limited confrontation. The Palestinian Authority will do everything in order to calm the situation. There is the Palestinian initiative that is supposed to be presented to the Security Council next month. Kerry appealed Benjamin Netanyahu for an urgent meeting. So the Palestinians don't want the escalation to serve the Israeli propaganda, to serve the Israeli responsibles in accusing the Palestinians for reciprocity in this, for mutuality in this wave of violence, to keep it where it is and to try to play the cards of joining the Convention of Rome. So the status of the Palestinian not as observer but as a member of the CPI, yes, international court, and these are being taken into consideration. There is a real anger, but the Palestinians are well aware that this is a very delicate political moment that should be taken into consideration.
You go ahead first.
Very quickly, there are 5 dimensions here. First is the medical or fact-finding dimension, and General Mordechai, the coordinator for the territories, came up immediately with the suggestion of a joint inquiry. 2 coroners from the respective establishments are going to work on it. This is a very good proposal.
And a Jordanian one as well, right?
Yes, but it will not have such an impact on public opinion because people have their beliefs already. The second one is the propaganda battle, and this is not only between Israel and the Palestinian Authority, but also between Fatah and Hamas. Are you collaborating with Israel or only coordinating? Then you have the diplomacy front, which Ali touched on, and Israel or Benjamin Netanyahu is worried, which is why he's going to meet Secretary Kerry early next week in Rome regarding what the Palestinians intend to do, and the administration, the U.S. administration, is this time going to support the Palestinians, perhaps not in this tactical move, but across the whole front of diplomacy. And you have the security coordination which is going on, and the political aspect. If one may just briefly touch on several lessons from the past. 1988, Shamir versus Peres, there is a terror act, Shamir wins. 1996, Netanyahu versus Peres, the terror wave, Netanyahu wins. 2000, Barak versus Sharon, the Al-Aqsa Intifada, Sharon wins. This time around, as Ali just said, the Palestinians are wising up to the situation.
Well aware, but speaking of that, Dimitri Dilani from Jerusalem, a member of the Fatah Revolutionary Council, with us on the phone. Dimitri, is that indeed the case, that within the Palestinian Authority, given the Israeli elections coming up, is there the case that the Palestinian Authority is going to try and keep the streets quiet because it's going to play into the hands of Prime Minister Netanyahu if the West Bank blows up?
There's a difference between violent acts and keeping the streets quiet. No, the streets will not be quiet, and no, there will not be any directed violent acts. But there might be uncontrollable individual decisions to go ahead with violent acts, something that nobody can stop. And for a person like Ziad Abu Ain, who was actually murdered while marking the International Human Rights Day by planting olive trees, I think there's a message there that nonviolence resistance is the way to show the world the injustice and the terror we live under occupation. That was his message, and I think his message will be respected. His unfortunate murder and assassination on the hands of these criminals will further spread nonviolence resistance, because this is what Ziad Abu Ain stood for all along. Even the attempts by right-wing Israeli media, and unfortunately, your report cited some of them, that he killed 2 people in Tiberias and all of that. He never admitted to that. He was tried by unjust military court. He spent unjustly 13 years in Israeli jails, came out to be a prominent nonviolent resistor of occupation, and still some people in Israel try to look and dig up to see where he might have done something violent to defame him in front of the Israeli public. I believe that this is far beyond racism. This goes into fascism. I think that the state of Israel is responsible not only for the acts of that soldier because it feeds hatred into its population, but also it's responsible directly because somebody of high profile like him is a known figure, he's a minister, he's a member of the Revolutionary Council. I do not think that orders to murder him or attack him in that way would come from a field officer, has to come from high up in the ranks. This is targeting non-violent Palestinian protests, and we will not stop.
Well, clearly, the investigation that is underway, and everybody, around the world, also condemnation has been called around the world already. Case in point, let's take a look quickly, though, at Jane Saki of the United States State Department had to say yesterday, as clearly the Western world is terrified that this is going to escalate, such as the people who are living here. Let's take a look what Saki had to say yesterday.
We are deeply concerned by the death of Palestinian Authority senior official Ziad Abu Ain, which reportedly occurred during a protest in the West Bank. We offer our condolences to his family and the Palestinian Authority. We've seen the reports that the Israelis are looking into an investigation into this incident. As always, we call for this investigation to be swift, fair, and transparent. And at this difficult time, we continue to call on both sides to work to lower tensions and prevent an escalation of violence.
Emil Owen still with me in studio. I mean, it sounds like essentially the Americans obviously not trying to take any sides and trying to keep the situation calm, but everybody doesn't want this to blow up.
Yes, but it's unfortunate. The situation is tense enough without conspiracy theories. And obviously there was no senior official ordering the border police to bash anyone's head. And as we saw, the late Minister Abu Ain suffered from some cardiac arrest and diabetes, and he was not murdered. That's for sure.
Right.
But the important point here is that senior officials, and there was an Israeli minister, Chavam Ze'evi, who was assassinated 12 years ago by terrorists. Senior officials are not immune from what the people are going through, and it is not an escalation. Senior officials who are leading their people should undertake the same chances. So the situation has to be de-escalated all around. It doesn't really matter whether a minister or just someone off the street was hurt. People should be safe. And what caused this altercation was the fact that there was a settlement there of Israelis. It was not an Israeli community. It was a community of Israelis in the West Bank.
And which some people actually call a settlement. I mean, that's, and in areas that are, clearly in dispute, to put it mildly. Amir Oren, thank you for being with us. I'm going to ask you to stay with us for the next segment. Now, earlier this week, the IDF's chief legal officer ordered the military police to launch a series of new investigations into the Army's conduct, speaking of the Israeli Army's conduct, yet again, during the 50-day war with Hamas this summer. The new cases involve the death of some 30 Palestinians and come in addition to 5 other incidents currently being probed. The investigations are a result of a fact-finding commission charged with examining roughly 100 complaints submitted mostly by NGOs in which Israeli forces were accused of war crimes. The IDF's Magistrate Advocate General also announced it was closing 7 other files, the commission having determined that there were no grounds for suspicion of criminal behavior. Now, before we get into it, let's watch the following clip highlighting exactly the Israeli Advocate General's recent decision. Let's take a look.
Between July 11th and 23rd, complaints were received that Israeli jets attacked the Al-Wafa hospital in Gaza. The IDF findings said the hospital was empty of patients and medical staff at the time and was being used by Hamas to launch attacks against IDF forces. On July 29th, complaints were received that Israeli troops shot and killed a man carrying a white flag and used his family members as human shields. The investigation yielded reasonable suspicion that the incident involved a deviation from the IDF's rules and procedures. On July 28th, complaints were received that Israeli airstrikes killed 10 people, including 9 children, in the vicinity of the Al-Shifa hospital. The IDF says no such Israeli strikes were carried out, and the IDF had identified rocket fire from within Gaza, seemingly by Palestinian militants. July 27th, complaints were received that an Israeli airstrike killed 27 civilians in targeting the home of the Abu Jama family in the Khan Yunis refugee camp. An investigation yielded reasonable suspicion that the incident involved a deviation from the IDF's rules and procedures.
Now, on Tuesday, Amnesty International accused Israel of carrying out a series of war crimes during the summer conflict, in which, according to Palestinian sources, killed 2,100 people. Many died, that is a fact. claiming the large-scale destruction Gaza suffered in the war was carried out deliberately and with no military justification. Israel denied the claims. Jerusalem has also refused to cooperate with the United Nations inquiry into possible war crimes during the conflict, accusing it of bias. To discuss this further, we're joined in studio by B'Tselem spokesperson, Sarit Michaeli. Sarit, good morning to you. Thank you for being with us. And by former head of International Law Department in the IDF, Colonel Advocate Liron Liebman. Liron, good morning to you, and thank you for being with us. Now, Sarit, you are familiar with, your organization is the one who raised many of these issues over the course of the summer. You know what? I'll start with your opinion on the Israeli Defense Forces investigation into the alleged crimes that they're being accused of. Do you think that's the procedure that should be taken?
Well, we expressed our dissatisfaction with the current system of investigation of suspected violations of the laws of armed conflict, the current system that looks into these suspicions. We think it's the wrong way to achieve accountability because it deals with the wrong issues. We think that the problems aren't specific so-called exceptional cases, but rather the issues of policy that need to be investigated rather than, individual actions of specific soldiers or even specific commanders in the field.
So in your mind, actually, anything the IDF investigates is pointless in many ways.
Well, clearly when soldiers and officers violate the Army's own regulations, they need to be held accountable for these actions. But the issues that have been raised over the summer are related much more to issues of policy, of decisions of the highest political echelons and the military command, rather than these so-called exceptional cases. And in fact, even treating them as exceptional cases reflects, an attitude that has clearly stated that everything else was fine.
Right. Now, Advocate Liron Liebman, I want to thank you, first of all, for being with us. I want to state that, we've turned to the IDF and we asked for somebody to come speak to us, and it didn't go well. And I'm not going to go into the ideas behind why they're not sitting here right now. But first of all, should a military be the one independently looking at complaints at itself, or shouldn't it be actually an independent commission? Because, this is not going to hold water, obviously, within groups around the world that are claiming that, heinous acts have been done.
Well, I guess some things Israel would never hold to some groups anyway. But let's go to the legal basis. First, Israel has an obligation, an independent obligation, to investigate allegations of war crimes or grave violations of our international law obligations. There is no question here. Now, Israel has established a public commission, the Turkey Commission, which had esteemed international observers and was assisted by very famous legal experts on exactly this question: how should allegations of war crime be investigated? And the unequivocal conclusion of this commission was that the current system is compatible with the highest international standards. Now, it has some recommendations.
That's an Israeli commission
That's a public commission headed by Supreme Court judge with foreign observers, which really wrote a very detailed report with all international standards and their implementation. Now, you can look at what are the legal obligations, or you can look at how things look. The Israeli system is independent in the sense that it's not that the commander is investigating its own actions. The military advocate general is independent. He's professionally responsible to the advocate general, the civilian advocate general. You can appeal the military, if you think the military advocate general closes a case with no justification, you can appeal to the Advocate General, the Civilian Advocate General, and you can go to the Supreme Court. And different NGOs have done it during the years, in some cases with success. So what exactly is the claim? I really find it hard to understand.
Well, you find well, maybe Sarit wants to answer that.
Well, I would say two things. The first is that the Turkey Commission has actually dealt with the question of the incapacity of a military police investigation to look at the political echelons. It simply cannot do that. It's not equipped, and it doesn't have the mandate. And of course, once you're looking at issues that are really questions of policy rather than questions of the individual actions actions of soldiers. This is a
Because
major
the army en masse
problem.
at the end of the day is following
The second
orders.
issue, of course, is the dual role of the military advocate general. The military advocate general, we're told, approved all of these operations, approved specific operations and general policy, and now of course he's also responsible, entrusted with ascertaining whether these operations were illegal, and of course this is an inherent contradiction.
Well, I mean, an inherent contradiction in terms of, investigating themselves. Then, you know what, I'm going to turn to today and actually move this away a little bit from these specific cases. But when something like that happened in the West Bank yesterday, okay, when a Palestinian minister is dead and, an investigation is underway, that type of investigation by the military, obviously, I mean, is that something that, clearly, is that going to be independent? Is that something that can be confronted in a different way? I want to ask you that, to begin with, Surit. Is that something that will be accepted on the ground?
Well, I mean, we certainly have many criticisms of the way that these military police investigations are conducted, the efficiency, the speed, and certainly the transparency. But at least there is an ability, there is a legal capacity to look at all of the relevant players. I mean, it presumably won't only be military police, because border police officers were involved as well, so it will be a much wider investigation. It'll have access to much of the information, and of course it should be prompt, it should be effective, but having said that, we do have major criticisms of the way these investigations are conducted, and we claim that they do not provide real accountability for these types of incidents.
And that criticism, Liron Lieberman, that criticism is actually something that's not just stated within NGOs such as B'Tselem in Israel. It's world around, and I think that's something that goes straight to the point of Operation Defensive Shield over the course of the summer. That investigations that we were discussing just now cannot possibly be investigated by the same bodies that are accused of perpetrating them. And isn't there any kind of understanding within the courts of the Israeli military or the policymakers that needs to go outside, and maybe it's going to make also Israel look better?
Well, again, I go back to the Turkel Commission. The claim that Sarit just said were raised before the Commission. The Commission dealt with these claims. It looked at what's happening in the U.S., what happens in Germany, in other places in the world. Military justice systems are not banned from dealing with this subject, as long as they are independent enough and under civilian oversight.
Right.
And this is the case.
And this is the case, sadly, all the time we have, but I think it's something that's, people will be discussing for days to come. When we get back with its work in Syria nearly done, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons sets its eyes on a new target. Yes, that's Israel. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Good morning. Thank you for staying with us. I-24 News Morning Edition. It is today, December 11th. Thank you, Tony Grant. Tony Grant is not just my human clock. He's here to give us the news you missed while scanning the headlines. And with us in studio is Ruthie Sinai, who keeps him in check.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Yes.
I better be careful what I say. Well, I want to start with a sort of a political earthquake that hit Israel last night.
Yes.
I think it's safe to say. Headline from Times of Israel says it all. Herzog and Livni joining forces to oust Netanyahu and will rotate premiership, leading many people to wonder, could they actually do that?
Could they actually do that? And can anybody here rotate partnership is the $1 million question. This was, we were expecting this for several days. It was
something to this effect.
But not the rotating.
Not the rotating. The rotating thing is
iffy,
and it did work once, though. It was one of the. It was actually
Shamir Peres.
Shamir Peres was one of the governments, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ruthie, though, that was one of the most successful governments in the history of the country of Israel.
Okay.
Seriously.
Well, to step back just for a quick second, the main thing here is for people that aren't so in tune with the domestic Israeli politics, they're forming a very large center-left political bloc. So it's to counter the right wing, I guess you could say, current administration. So it is a big deal.
Talk about being bipartisan. I mean, the clear divide of left and right in Israel. It also, actually, that reminds me that, or a little bird in my ear reminded me that Amir Peretz, who is now returning to labor.
Yeah.
Yes, Amir Peretz returning to labor. But yes,
and Mitzna.
And Mitzna's returning. Oh my God, everybody goes home.
And Herzog, of course, with the Labor Party, people are, some are wondering, what about Yair Lapid?
Yes. Wow.
But again, it's just getting very dramatic.
No, it's getting very dramatic, and we are here to follow it all.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also dramatic, but on a sad note, as I look out at that Mediterranean Sea, the United Nations Refugee Agency yesterday released a report that saying that 3,400 people, maybe even a few more, actually died in the Mediterranean in 2014 trying to reach Europe. The issue of immigration, illegal immigration, but migration on the Mediterranean is something that is becoming an acute problem. And the report says that more than 207,000 people have tried to make the sea crossing since January, almost 3 times the previous high of 70,000 during the Libyan civil war in 2011. And they're demanding, the UN is saying the governments around the Mediterranean need to do more to address the crisis. There's no other word for it.
No, it's very much, brings to mind, so many things that I'm not going to touch on if we're looking back in the history of this world. But I think today is also International Migrant Day. It truly is.
So it could be timed for that.
It's timed for that, but it's these staggering numbers. And when we're looking also at, and I think Ruthie was the one who sat with me in studio a week ago, talking about the situation in Syria, when we're looking in so many, the refugees, displaced people in the world, we have the migrants, and
when you look at the papers of, say, Italy, Greece, every day there are stories coming out of, new boats that have arrived. Right. People don't know what to do with the migrants. So it really is reaching crisis proportions.
Staggering proportions.
And staggering proportions, exactly. And that's that's the key point. Yes.
In the meantime, and adding controversy to it, if you will, is the Telegraph from Britain reports that the UK's Office of Budget Responsibility, the head honcho there, said Britain has masses of room for more people.
Oh.
Yes. So, and
Your picture doesn't show that.
Right. I know. I don't know the choice of photos.
Crowded there.
Yeah, I'm not sure if that's the best picture.
Britain
but
has masses of room for more people.
Apparently, the urban area of lovely Surrey occupies less space than its golf courses, and he's rejecting claims. Could be a little political there description.
Oh my Lord.
They're rejecting claims that Britain doesn't have enough room for migrants, and immigration in Britain is a huge political punching bag.
Punching bag
hot
between.
Potato.
Yeah, hot potato to say the least. Hot fish and chips. Back to
Moving
the Middle
on,
East,
yes.
Al-Aram reports that Egypt has imposed security restrictions on any Egyptian between 18 and 40 who wants to travel to Iraq or Turkey. Well, guess why? Because Turkey, of course, is one of the main entry points to
routes if you want to join IS.
Right.
Yep.
And so I guess the implication there is that some people in Egypt might want to join IS, particularly coming from the Sinai, seems to be the implication of the article. So they are adding another layer of screening, if you will, before they can actually...
No, it's an interesting move. Which is, you wonder if Canada needs to do the same. But yes.
Some things you can only do in a authoritarian state.
Turkey.
There you go.
Yes.
There you go. I don't know if we discussed earlier, but Time Magazine has come out with their Person of the Year.
Yes.
Or persons, which are the Ebola fighters. I personally was rooting for Taylor Swift and Putin because they were together. They were shortlisted.
I know. I mean, I'm glad we went for.
But this is important.
And this is, it's interesting that, and I'm glad that it's a point to mention Ebola again, and the people who really risk their lives. I think the numbers in Africa, and I'm glad you brought this in. Person of the Year, the people who fight the disease, who go over there
on the front lines, really.
On the front lines, as
Doctors Without Borders.
Yeah, exactly. And we have to mention to our viewers that it's the numbers in Africa of the people who perished, who succumbed to Ebola, has now reached 6,000 and 500 or something like that.
And it's not abated, basically.
Exactly,
so
and it's not contained
continue
yet.
Into 2015.
And these are people who are really, heroes in many ways.
In the trenches. Also, just back sort of in this region, Greece, there has been a big sort of shakeup this week. The Financial Times reports that a snap election in Greece, which is coming up next week, has reignited fears for the Eurozone. Tuesday was actually considered to be Black Tuesday in Athens as the stock market there dipped 10% because
they can't really afford to do in Greece anymore.
They can't much. They really.
Where can it dip to more? Yep.
Samaras, the prime minister, announced basically no confidence vote coming up in the Greek parliament, which will choose the president. So a lot of worries here that maybe the anti-bailout Syriza party could actually take power, which might play well domestically in Greece potentially, but for the Eurozone, which is already fragile, we thought Greece was out of the clear, but investors are now sort of scratching their heads thinking, well, what actually is going on there? So it's a really pivotal week there in Greece.
Such a success story, the EU. Yes.
France too is in on
it is. In
many ways, yeah. They did give us the Parthenon in Athena.
Yes.
And a lot of good things. France is in the news for their economic woes. Basically, Wall Street Journal here says that they're readying the so-called Macron plan to kickstart. There's Macron.
Okay,
Yes.
I thought of a big cookie right now.
Oh, that's macaroon.
Macaroon, thank you.
Macaroons for all.
Macaroons for all, macaroon
Right now.
There's no bread.
Let
them eat macaroons.
Look at him, he's even got the hand gesture there. Actually,
Yes, and?
honestly, no, he actually is trying to really kickstart the dismal French economy, and Francois Hollande has taken a drubbing because he hasn't seemed to have been able to get France out of its doldrums. So this guy's a former investment banker. He's got a young, fresh look,
Right.
young, fresh ideas, wants to cut through all that infamous French red tape. And we know that French red tape can go very deep.
Oh, yes.
So let's see. We wish him success in his efforts.
we do. And Tony, I mean, sadly, all the time we have now, because we are moving to one of the most interesting stories of the morning, but we locked you in the studio. So
Gotcha.
thank you. Yes, the OPCW, the Organization for the Prohibition of Chemical Weapons, that's the OPCW, has been widely hailed for its success in dismantling a major regional threat. That would be Syria. A bit more than a year after it took on the mission of destroying Syrian President Bashar Assad's chemical weapons arsenal and avoiding, a huge regional war here. With a Nobel Peace Prize under its belt, the OPCW has nearly completed its current objective and is looking for its next challenge. Cue in Israel, so it seems. To further discuss this, we're joined in studio by I-24 News senior editor Ruthie Sinai. Ruthie, good morning to you.
Tony.
And let's first take a look at Ron Friedman's report and take it from there.
Within the month, the destruction of 12 chemical weapons facilities in Syria is set to begin, thus concluding the process of dismantling the Assad regime of its non-conventional weapons, which started last year. The decision to rid Syria of its chemical arsenal was reached by Russia and the West as a last-ditch effort to avoid a U.S. military offensive. Syria accepted the agreement, and weapons inspectors were sent on their way. The organization that carried out the complex task, the Dutch-based watchdog OPCW, says that all 1,300 tons of Syria's chemical weapons have been removed and that 97% of it has been destroyed. For its work in Syria, the group won the 2013 Nobel Peace Prize, but as far as it's concerned, its goal is far from met.
You cannot see them, you cannot smell them, and they offer no warning for the unsuspecting. But their effects are devastating, burning, blinding, or suffocating their victims.
With work in Syria nearly done, the OPCW is now free to look elsewhere, and Israel is firmly in its sights.
We are joined from The Hague by the OPCW's head of the Government Relations and Political Affairs branch, Peter Sozak. I hope I'm pronouncing your last name right. Good morning to you, Mr. Sozak, and thank you for joining us.
Good morning. Pleasure to be here.
Lovely. The idea is, and Ruthie Sinai, I-24 News senior editor, sitting here with me. The idea is that the attention now of your organization, which, by the way, congratulations for last year and amazing work that you've done in Syria. That the attention is now turned to other countries to try and dismantle them from chemical weapons. And obviously, according to foreign reports, Israel supposedly is holding an arsenal as well of chemical weapons. Isn't it a bit naive to think that Israel is a country that will ever allow any type of organization to come, take a look, or dismantle its arsenal?
Well, Israel, of course, was one of the first signatories to the Chemical Weapons Convention back in 1993. So the establishment in Israel presumably made a decision that it could, in fact, implement the provisions of the CWC.
Yeah, but they didn't ratify it. But they did not ratify the agreement.
No, they have not ratified the agreement. You mentioned the regime we have in the Chemical Weapons Convention to make sure that its member states aren't covertly building chemical weapons. Well, I mean, this is a well-tried and tested regime. There are provisions for it to manage access to commercially sensitive material, to security-sensitive material and facilities. And in fact, industry as well as governments took part in negotiations. Among those was Israel back in Geneva in the 1980s through the early 1990s. So Israel's concerns certainly would have been addressed in the context of those negotiations.
Okay, but you know what, Ruthie, let's turn to you as well, and Peter, do stay with us. You just came back actually from The Hague.
Right.
This is a story that's coming out from you sitting actually with these fine people.
Right.
Same to you. I mean, this is something that isn't a pie in the sky for an international organization to believe. We're sitting here in the Middle East. We know the administration currently, as we said, yes, it's a signatory, but it never ratified it.
Right.
Would it be something that would ever work?
Well, I have a hard time understanding Israel's position on this, I have to say. I've sort of looked into it and spoken to people in the last few days, and it really doesn't make any sense to me. And, sort of conventional wisdom would have it that Israel would understand this too. I mean, Israel is about, the OPCW, as Peter I'm sure will tell us too, is about to complete 193 states as member states. Angola and Myanmar are about to come on board, South Sudan. So essentially, Israel will be left there in splendor, isolationist splendor with North Korea and Egypt. Israel says right out that it will never use chemical weapons. There is nothing in the convention that says that Israel cannot defend itself against chemical weapons should, God forbid, any of its neighbors or IS or Al-Qaeda or anybody else think to attack it. So it's just totally incomprehensible to me, and maybe Peter has some insights as to why Israel is so stubbornly refusing when, as he mentioned himself, in 1993, under the Rabin government, Israel was one of the first signatories to the agreement, and it was involved in the formulation of the agreement.
Involved in formulation of the agreement, I think, if I were to channel the administration, the Israeli administration's answer to that would be probably power of deterrence, whatnot. But Peter, as you're with us, has there been a reaction from the Israeli administration, to your organization?
Well, Israel's participated in our annual conferences in The Hague and delivered statements there. We haven't had much practical engagement beyond that. But, as Ruth mentioned, Chemical Weapons Convention is, in fact, a global norm already. There are diplomatic benefits to joining, but the bottom line is that, especially in the wake of the confirmed use of chemical weapons in Syria recently, and the international reaction to it, showed quite clearly that chemical weapons are not only taboo in the eyes of the international community, but they are not a strategic option for any country. So there is no disadvantage to Israel to ratifying the Chemical Weapons Convention in relation to an option they simply do not have in the eyes of the international community. And that's quite clear. So there are no disadvantages to joining. And as I mentioned before, there are, of course, advantages in terms of participating in a regime that tries to keep all of its member states honest, and because of the tools and mechanisms we have at our disposal. And Israel obviously would be a very welcome state party in the sense that it knows the security dynamics of its region in particular very, very well, and could make quite an active contribution.
Right. No, and quickly, though, when it comes to Syria, because I have you on the phone, is the job there done?
Well, the job has been a remarkable effort, frankly. Less than a year after the Executive Council, the OPCW, took a decision on the destruction program, we've more or less achieved it. All declared chemical weapons were removed from Syria. 98% have been destroyed so far. There is some ongoing work which we're doing very assiduously. That is to clarify Syria's initial declaration. That is to finalize arrangements to destroy 12 production facilities for chemical weapons in the past. And thirdly, to follow up allegations of use of toxic chemicals as a weapon through our fact-finding mission.
Okay, well, that clearly, job clearly almost done. But thank you for being with us on the phone. Ruthie, sadly, all the time we have, but as you mentioned, another point of, possible isolation for Israel.
Absolutely.
And this matter yet again. When we come back, Israel deals with one of the worst pollution events in the history of the country. We will take a closer look. First, though, let's hear some more of the morning headlines. Welcome back. It is still Thursday, December 11, 2014. This is still the morning edition on I-24 News. Last I checked, I'm still Yael Avian. Thank you for staying with us. Now, our next story actually happened this week, a week ago, a major oil pipe burst in southern Israel. The subsequent spill causing the outpour of some 5 million, that's 5 million liters of crude oil, making it one of, if not the biggest ecological disasters to hit Israel. In the immediate aftermath of the burst, over 80 people were treated for medical problems caused by inhaling harmful fumes on both sides of both Israel and Jordan, on the Israeli-Jordanian border. But now the chief concern is the harm to the environment. Rivers in the area flow to the Red Sea, and there is a real danger the oil will damage protected coral reefs there. In the wake of the spill, many questions have been raised over the government's handling of the case. To discuss this, we're joined in studio by environmental journalist Netta Achitov. Netta, good morning to you. Actually, by our one and only Netta Achitov, and by Mor Gilboa, the director of the Green Course Environmental Group. Good morning to you, Mor. Now, I want to start with you, Netta. It was the beginning of the week. At the beginning of the week, actually kind of poo-pooed it. I have to tell you, in the scale of...
You had too much on your mind.
I had too much on my mind, but in the scale of, international news.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you something. People call me conspiracy theorist, but following this oil spill, the following day, Israel was in this big haze.
Yes.
Weather-wise, and people, you can tell me it's related or it's not related. There seemed to be this big haze covering Israel. In some places, I read that it was the metals that went up to the air from the oil spill. Is that something that I'm correct in saying?
I don't think it would arrive to the center of Tel Aviv from the south, but something is going on over the weather. It's not like the weather we knew
It's
before.
not the weather new. It's like there were reports also that there were wrong readings of of rain clouds, and essentially that's the metal in the air. It's affected the country. It's affected the region. How bad?
Let's if we go back to the weather is crazy. You have rain, very sudden or very intensive rain in some periods, and then not at all during the whole of December.
Resulting from the
things
spill.
Global warming,
course,
and this is also this fact of the crazy weather is also kind of worrisome. When we think of the oil spill, because they are really afraid that there will be a lot of rain and, many crazy storms in the desert, and this will spread the spill to Eilat and to other areas. So now they are trying to work against kind of time and weather. It seems that they did kind of were able to control it. Yes, it's contained, and they were able to control it by doing making this area's basins, so the oil could go there and not, continue to spread. But what they didn't know is that they didn't know how much oil has been spilled, and they realize, every day that it's more than they thought at the beginning.
That it's more than it was in the beginning.
Yes. And to top on that, there is no environmental minister right now because Amir Peretz,
resigned.
So the prime minister is actually he is the environmental minister. It's not, his mind is not really there these days.
He's slightly preoccupied, and the interesting thing here is, but I want to turn to Mor, with us also, Mor Gilboa, the director of the Green Course Environmental Group. When something like this happens, obviously, you are the first people that, we turn to. But as Netta says, when we look at the government reaction, it took the Israeli Prime Minister several days to get down to the area afflicted. The area afflicted, I think, was also closed down. I'm going to start with the same question to Netta. How bad is it, and how bad will it affect Israel in the course of the next coming years? Nobody seems to be really telling us that.
Unfortunately. We think that the situation is very, very bad. Of course, it's bad for the environment. They said that it will take nature to
renew itself.
Something like 50 years from now. Damage for many unique and random trees and the animals, and the whole area is a huge natural reserve. So this is a very, very big problem to the nature, and for us as the people who are supposed to
maintain and take care of it.
But above all this, we are in the environmental organization for many years now say that the most important thing is that Israel don't have really energy policy, and because of that, things like that can and should not happen. In one end, Israel is promoting, the government of Israel is promoting very dangerous projects like the oil drilling in the Golan Heights. Actually, they are supposed to be fracking there. It can damage the Kinneret, which provide more than 30% of the drinking water of Israel. Dangerous for many lakes, and in the other end, Israel now in 2015 was supposed to be on 5% renewable energies, and we are now standing only on 1% renewable energies, and all the promises of the government to speed this
procedure. Nothing has happened. But I want to, speaking of the government, we have Prime Minister Netanyahu has mentioned it took, I think, about 3 days for the Prime Minister to go
even say something.
To even say something, to go down to the area. Let's take a look what Prime Minister Netanyahu, who visited the afflicted area, had to say.
Over the recent days, we were busy with a range of issues, but from the moment I learned about the oil spill, I've been following the issue closely. I've appointed the Prime Minister's Office Director General, Harel Loker, to coordinate the handling of the incident together with the relevant government ministries. I took the first opportunity to come here. I appointed Deputy Minister Ophir Kunis to be the minister in charge of environmental affairs. We received a thorough briefing on the actions underway to first and foremost ensure public safety and health, and of course the environment's well-being. There are a series of actions that will likely take a long time. We'll allocate the necessary resources to protect this natural treasure.
On the phone with us also is Zoe Tangi, a resident of Be'or, located several kilometers from the spill site. Zoe, good morning to you.
Good morning.
As a resident of the area, what have you been told? Was there any kind of, administrative authorities, instructions that were given to the people in and around the spill, what to do? Were you told that everything is okay? And what did you, what is the situation there when it comes to, immediate effects that you're seeing and feeling as a resident?
Okay, firstly, as a resident, I can say we haven't really been affected. In the first day or two, obviously we had a strong smell of the crude oil. Since then, with the natural winds and obviously the clearing up project, we found that inside the settlement we're not really affected. I think that as it stands, that everything, we see that workers are around 24/7. Everything appears to be helping us in every way that we can. We're a community, we stick together, and everything, we find that we do feel we're being supported and explained. In the first couple of days, children were not allowed to play outside. We were informed about that immediately. So I think that everything is being done to help us. We don't feel the effect inside the settlement at all.
No, which is a good thing to hear. But more, I want to ask you, and both more and Netta, the pipeline company.
Yeah.
That is supposed to give answers to what's going on, and clearly the residents, for the immediate effect, I think we're being given the right instructions.
Yes.
But there's very little information that we do know.
Yes.
Isn't that the case?
Yeah, it's a very interesting company. There is a censorship over everything that they do.
That's
think
the
all the reports.
Ashkelon to
Eilat
pipeline.
Yeah, and it's an interesting story. It's a long story, but to make it short, it used to belong to Iran during the Shah days, before the
Ayatollah
revolution.
Yeah.
So it was half owned by Iran and half by Israel. And since the revolution, Israel and Iran are negotiating what to do and how to compensate Iran getting out of there. And because of these negotiations, there is a really, really big censorship about that. Journalists are not allowed to write what's going on there. We're not allowed to look at their reports. So there is
because the negotiation. Well, first of all, I love that the headline of the day is Iran and Israel negotiating.
Yes.
Yeah, on a pipeline, but that's the excuse, that's the argument for the big amount.
We don't know anything that's going on there. This is the third time that such a thing happens. Another one was in 2011, like third of the amount of oil, but still there was a spill, and another big spill in 1975. In both cases, no one ever got charged by anything. There was like a 3 months investigation, and that's it.
So more basically, an organization like yours probably is pushing to get answers, so to know how to deal with it, and you're being told that you'll never be given the answer of what happened.
That's what probably will happen. The problem is that no one really knows how many amounts of oil there are in those pipes and tracks there. And even the Ministry of Environment is not allowed to control what is going on there.
And it's responsible is the Treasure Office, not even the environment. It's something really strange there. Sorry.
Yeah, and it's not under any kind of legalization whatsoever. And there are rumors about
such as what? What are the rumors?
Israel is buying oil in cheap prices and sell it when it's good for. We don't know, but it's not allowed. Not even in the manner of right policy for the environment.
Were we ever given really true information about the cause of this spill?
The connection between two pipes.
Between two pipes, that's what we were being told.
Yeah, this is the formal.
The formal response is that the connection between two pipes.
Yeah,
okay.
And the last time in 2011 it was like a working truck that bumped into one of the pipes. So it's a different. At least it's a different cause this time.
But as we said more, we're looking at approximately 50 years of damage to the environment, to the environment of Israel over the course of the next 50 years to try and fix this thing. Okay.
Yeah, and it's in a natural reserve. This is also a bit of a problem. It's called Evrona, and there are very rare trees and animals there. So.
Yes.
And it's also important to say that right now online there are thousands of people demanding Israel government to close Qatar or to do some...
Qatar being the pipeline company.
Yeah,
yes.
Or to do some really big interrogation about what is happened there, and that it's not be, like Neta said, like the other leaks that were. This time we want this thing to be resolved.
Was there a response from the administration to any of these petitions?
No response until now.
None whatsoever. But we have, we have actually, just the environmental, we do have actually a response to some of the allegations that were heard today, and this is the Environmental Protection Agency. The Environmental Policy Agency has launched a criminal investigation to examine the circumstances of the event so as to bring those responsible to justice. Ministry's officials are currently focused on saving the environment, nature, and not trading accusations with environmental groups. So they don't want you to blame fingers.
They were demonstrating yesterday, right? In front of the pipeline offices.
Right.
In Ashkelon.
All they're asking you is not to blame a finger, but they're not going to tell you anything. Yeah. Okay. Good. That's a good policy, obviously, in a democracy. But again, thank you more for being with us here today, Neta. We are locking you in studio. I'm truly hoping that you have slightly more optimistic environmental news for us today.
Yes, and I have also some freaky animals.
Some freaky animals. Let's go for it really quickly. What do we have? This is another environmental news. Yes.
It all connects because it was poor timing for the Ministry of Environment because the head of, the manager of the ministry was abroad in Lima for this really, really big and important conference.
Right.
He just arrived yesterday or 2 days ago. He arrived, unfortunately, and I guess he wasn't very happy to arrive to such a crisis. He was hoping, to
maybe
come.
Something else.
Yes. So anyway, there are good news from Lima because tomorrow it's the last day of the conference, but it's been really, really good 2 weeks and we're kind of optimistic. And yesterday, Australia surprised everybody.
Wow.
And this is the next one, but
that's not the one. It was really surprised everybody.
And was willing to give money to a green fund. Green fund that will help poor countries deal with the climate change consequences, such as Peru, for example, where the conference is. So there is $10 billion now in this fund to help poor countries, and they're trying to raise, this is a bit pretentious, $100 billion by 2030.
Slightly pretentious?
Let's hope they will.
Optimistic.
Let's hope they will do it. But there is something going on because, the debate is always between the poor countries and the rich countries. The poor country says, come on, you polluted all these years, you had the Industrial Revolution, you are consuming as,
Right, why do we have to pay the price?
Exactly. And we are paying also the environmental price, and now we have to,
stop our advancement.
Exactly.
In order to
so this is the biggest debate always, when talking about global warming.
Who's to
international. So now we have this fund, which is, a good step forward.
It's an optimistic thing, and sadly, and now I see that it's all the time we have, but I'm glad that, at least something came out of, what else do you have, real quick?
The banner that you've just seen, these are 300 indigenous people from Peru.
Let's take a look at that again.
And they are doing the Pachamama symbol to raise awareness.
I'm nodding, I'm like, what is the Pachamama? That's the Pachamama symbol,
okay. The Pachamama and a tree, and this is to raise awareness to their forests where they live, and they want to protect them. And they're calling all the world and all the leaders that are in Lima now. Please help us protect our
environment. And
Yes.
if you live in southern Israel, don't go lie in the oil spill. Do and protest, but
Yes.
do make your voice heard online with the environmental groups. That's it for this part of the show. Do stay with us. When we get back, we have the inside and the short list of the Sundance film. Sundance releases its short film lineup. We'll have all the details about that. First, of course, some more of the morning headlines. Good morning, I-24 News Morning Edition, Thursday, December, as Tony Grant told me, 11th, 2014, and Tony Grant is here with us for the spiral viral that is the web review, but who cares? Because we have Leticia Lorny in the studio.
Bonjour.
Yes. And before we all just look at her, I'll turn to Tony.
Well, I have got some pre-spiral news, which is, very, very earth-shaking. Lonely Planet has just come out and named as the best place to visit in 2015, Queens, New York.
Oh,
Yeah.
Wait a second.
I know.
Stop.
Yes.
What?
Queens.
Queens?
I mean, not that.
I lived in Manhattan for nearly 17 years. I was in Queens twice.
Yeah, me
and one
too.
of them for a steak restaurant.
Greek food.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
We don't want to hate on Queens.
No. We're not bitching on Queens.
No.
Yeah.
But speaking of hate, we have Ayatollah Ali Khamenei of Iran.
Ah, good.
Yes. Who went on a Twitter rant against the United States yesterday
Love
in
that
response to the so-called CIA torture report.
Yes.
He was using hashtag torture report, hashtag Ferguson to blast the U.S. government right and left. He wasted no time.
No, great.
Yeah.
And he probably found it devastating?
He probably thought that it, secretly resonated in many ways.
No, but did he look at that and goes, we never tried that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Maybe that's on Facebook. I don't
Yes.
know. Speaking of hate, Maria Shriver. No.
Right.
For those who don't know, Maria Shriver is the niece of JFK.
And the ex of?
Arnold Schwarzenegger, former First Lady of California. She apparently is not keen on her son, Patrick, dating Miley Cyrus.
Stop. First of all, her son is dating. Miley Cyrus is dating a Kennedy?
This is scary stuff.
She's gonna die. Yeah, true.
No,
somebody told her they always die in ski accidents. Or they get assassinated.
Let's just think back to Daryl Hannah and JFK Jr.
I know,
and of course
Miley Cyrus is no Daryl Hannah, honey.
I did not say that she was.
That.
I did not say that she was,
okay.
of course. But again, apparently Maria Shriver canceled her trip to Miami when she found out that Miley Cyrus was going to show up there and sing and smoke pot on stage, all the rest of it. Controversial.
And you know who stopped the Daryl Hannah? It was Jackie O.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, mother step in where
we're
angels
gonna
skirt
wait
tread.
for Maria Shriver to go all Polish mother on her son's
I think it's
behind.
starting,
Yes.
allegedly.
Allegedly.
There's another royal wedding in the offing. Let's take it to Monaco.
Monaco.
Yes, the Monaco's next. There they are.
Yes.
Yes, we're talking about Pierre Casiraghi and his girlfriend Beatrice Borromeo. And we're talking about Princess Caroline of Monaco's younger son is Pierre there. And
I don't know what we did to her forehead.
No, that's a hat.
Ah.
Yeah, that's what that passes for fashion in Monaco.
Wait a
right?
second, we gotta freeze in that picture because I thought we either scratched it.
No.
Or an alien was standing
exactly
behind her.
right.
As in French, they say it's a chapeau.
That is a chapeau.
Yeah, it's amazing.
I'm so behind on fashion.
I mean, she is setting new trends in strange.
Grab me by my horns. What is that?
Yeah, he must like it on some level.
Clearly. Wow.
Let's talk about the sisters Lohan.
Please.
Okay.
Yes.
Lindsay and sister Ali were partying with Mohammed Al-Turki, the filmmaker in London. She's puckering up for the camera because it's Christmas time.
Of course.
Now, let's not forget they were partying at Tramp, the hot London club. Now, let's not forget that Mohammed Al-Turki is the son of Sheikh Abdulaziz Al-Turki. And I
will never forget that.
Yeah, and he is an influential guy. And who knows, there could be a new film in the works. Starts
so
off
maybe
with a party,
something more.
Maybe.
So that's the Lindsay sibling?
Lindsay's sibling, Ali, yes.
Ali.
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 Yeah, she's
Ali.
wearing black.
Ali.
And,
yeah, okay. Wow.
Lindsay prefers red,
Because it's Christmas.
It is
Christmas,
It is
absolutely.
Christmas. And
Anyways, Hollywood women, of Lindsay Lohan is one. What do they really want? What do Hollywood women really want? According to the New York Times, I know you're laughing, they want to be on Hollywood Reporter's top 100 women in Hollywood list.
Yes.
Yes.
Because there are no other problems in the world. Okay.
Exactly.
Yeah, and that's what they live for.
It sends publicists into a tizzy, apparently. They jockey to get their powerful women on that list. And again...
Does it come with a goodie bag?
I don't know, but I mean, women, to sort of shake up Hollywood. And, speaking of shaking up Hollywood, nothing like a good earthquake.
Yes, where would we have the earthquake? In
the earthquake, the forecast earthquake could be any time, but there's a new movie that's scheduled to come out in 2015 called San Andreas, and the clip leaked or was sent online yesterday. I think we have a clip.
Do we have that
clip? Great stuff.
Yes, let's watch the clip.
With The Rock.
Okay, that was first of all a very, very creepy kind of version of California Dreaming.
Yes, I know. Yeah,
I know.
Very Dirge-like.
And I gotta say, looking at wow.
Yeah.
They have movie stars like perishing or whatnot. Look, I'm losing my voice. I'm so devastated.
Yeah, you have to wait a while.
Around here.
Chances are that if you're in California between now and May, there's going to be an earthquake. Maybe not one as big as that, but
that's why you are going to California next week.
Exactly.
To investigate
the earthquakes.
Risking your life for I-24 News.
This is true.
Yes.
Well, historically, California's had a lot of earthquakes. If you look back in the past in San Francisco, and if you look back in the past in Turkey, what do you find?
Great furniture.
Yeah. you find the pre-modern Turkish language, the Ottoman.
The Ottoman.
Yes, and the president of Turkey is going to be introducing Ottoman language courses, whether you like it or not.
Which seems to be the modus operandi for Erdogan.
He's just going to go ahead and do it, you know.
To be a fascist. Yes. I'm going to shut up.
You need an antidote to that. You need Nicole Kidman.
Yes.
She has come out publicly and said that she hopes to get pregnant every month. Yes, there she is.
Okay, I'm going to, as a woman who's been, now you've touched on a delicate issue.
Any thoughts?
Yes. As a woman who was pregnant twice, when women, other than me, come out and say that they love being pregnant, Leticia, I know you haven't yet, and take your time. The whole notion of like loving to be pregnant, huge lie. Yeah. Outcome, wonderful. Procedure, not what led to it, great. The whole process, awful.
You're actually the first one that's honest about that.
Thank you. I wish somebody told me that.
My mom's pretty honest about that too, I think.
Yeah. I mean, because we love getting fat.
And we love Nicole Kidman, but what is she thinking?
I really think all that Botox just went to her head.
Oh, gosh. Talking about Queens, how about Brooklyn? Brooklyn.
Brooklyn,
Did you see what this new dessert that's making waves in the culinary circles?
It's
Nutella lasagna. It's a lasagna made from Nutella.
And what is it? Is it crepes?
Oh my God, no.
It's actual.
I'm going to say it. That looks like an orgasm on a plate. It does. It really does.
I want to know the details.
No.
Yeah, well, it's just in time for
It's a
Christmas.
Nutella lasagna.
So it really is like.
It's like I can see a lot of Nutella, and it's probably got like sweet cheese in it that's melting.
Yeah, like that ricotta kind of whatever.
The ricotta type thing, that's
with little maybe sliced bananas.
As I said, because this is a sexual experience on the plate, I'm going to have to move to Leticia.
Yes.
But now that we've had that,
all right.
Clearly the end of the show. Leticia Lorny here, don't worry, but when the show ends, I'm going to go out and make that. But now you have for us actually one of the best festivals that I love every year. I've also been once, and that's Sundance.
Sundance. So we don't have the official lineup for movies that are actually going to be in competition, but we have some details about some out of the competition movie, which announced a lot of controversy this year. James Franco is going to present I Am Michael, which is based on a true story of a gay activist who rejected his homosexuality and became a priest. It's also starring Zachary Quinto and Emma Roberts. We haven't seen James Franco in a good movie since basically 127 hours.
Did you say 127 hours? Did you like 127 hours?
I liked it. I couldn't watch the whole scene where
See, that's the only thing I liked. I just like the hand cutting.
And everyone was fainting around me in the movie theater. You know, there was a lot of reaction to this scene, actually. In the movie theater, everyone was fainting or vomiting, so it was kind of hard to concentrate on the movie, but I liked it.
But Franco has had, and I love him as an actor. I mean, he's insane. His taste in younger women is questionable. But
his taste in anything, actually, because if you look at his Instagram, it's pretty
pretty weird. Pretty awkward.
Another movie is that's going to be also subject to controversy is Ewan McGregor. He's playing Jesus and the devil in the same movie. It's called Last Days in the Desert. It's directed by Rodrigo Garcia, and it's based on an imagined chapter from the Bibles.
Right.
40 days of fasting and praying in the desert story. So that's going to be also interesting.
He plays Jesus
and the devil.
And probably his bodyguards now from all religious fanatics around the world. Okay, interesting stuff.
Yeah. No, so that's for the two movies that you know, like we know for now that's going to be talked about for sure. Other than this, Robert Redford will be more present this year than any other year. Usually he's standing outside of the light.
And we have to remind people that Robert Redford is the man behind Sundance.
He is, and usually that's why he's standing outside of the light, because he wants to meet with the directors. He wants to be more concentrated on the on the outside work, and now he's stepping inside.
Probably let the young filmmakers take center stage.
Leave the attention.
Exactly.
Leave the attention to.
So why is he taking center stage?
He's gonna be part of a panel along with George Lucas. They're gonna be talking about the power of story in a segment that's called Power of Story: Visions of Independence. It's part of a segment of the festival. Right. It's conversations basically about art and the how.
And I have an idea. I'm theorizing, as I do with major big news, but I'm theorizing that actually, because I think Hollywood nowadays, and you would know if you look at movies that are coming out of Hollywood, it's not the storyline as much as it is the big production, like Exodus that you brought us last week. That it's all about freaking.
Yeah.
What about the story?
Yeah.
The actual story. So okay.
And it's Sundance is all about this too. It's an independent film festival, far away from a studio.
From studios. And
it's funny that he's going to talk with George Lucas about that, because
True.
Interesting.
Yeah, I know George Lucas, the man who is never going to stop doing Star Wars sequels and
well, he's
prequels.
Actually not doing this one.
He isn't, right? Yeah. Right. But he's probably making money off it.
he's the force behind the scene.
He's the force. And what else?
What else? That's it for Sundance. Because I want to move on to another subject. The first look at The Walk, which is the new movie by Robert Zemeckis, the director of Forrest Gump.
Forrest Gump. Do we have a trailer for
we
this?
do have it. Let's take a look and let's talk about it right
Let's take a look at the trailer. I love Rob. Okay. Sorry. Come on, jump, walk, do something. Beginning with a single step. Is he going to take the step? Is he going to take the step? Yes, we can. So what is this?
You're just
what is this movie?
This movie is called The Walk. It's based on the documentary Walk on Wire, which was a 2008 documentary.
The documentary was phenomenal.
The documentary was Oscar-winning documentary based on the true story of Philippe Petit, who's a crazy man, absolutely insane, but super interesting, and he's a Frenchman, of course.
Who's done this, and many, this 1974 was the first walk or something like that?
The walk actually was in 74 because it was a crime. They actually entered, not being authorized, inside the World Trade Center and organized the whole thing, and then eventually everyone looked up and the guy was walking on a wire. So that's the movie based on that, with Joseph Gordon-Levitt as Philippe Petit, and I'm very excited that
I know, and
even though the documentary, as you said,
not only you can get nauseous because it's going to be in 3D.
Yeah.
And what else?
And
Last
on
one.
IMAX.
Yeah.
Last thing, it's pretty cool actually. New York Times, every year is doing, at the end of the year, is doing some videos about actors, and they give them a theme, right?
Yes, they give them a theme. I see it every single year.
This year is actually actors kissing. In a different little short movie. So I have the footage from it, so we can see Benedict Cumberbatch. I never know how to say.
That's right.
Cumberbatch. Yeah, I know what you want to say. Don't do that. Yeah.
We have Kristen Stewart also kissing, and we have also Timothy Spall, which we're going to see also. That's kissing another man, and as well as Rosario Dawson, that's her also kissing another girl. So it's pretty cute, it's pretty interesting, and it's funny because it's always very awkward scenes. There's a bunch of them, you can check them online.
No, you saw that. That's brilliant.
It's pretty cute.
That's Rosario Dawson, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Oh my God! I mean, this is. I think probably everybody in the control room is going.
Is going
insane. Two beautiful women kissing. Leticia, you and I are not going to do it. Don't worry.
I was actually. I wanted to kiss you today.
Well, wait. I speak French.
You speak French? I was wondering. Yeah, that's just. Okay, that's it for us, guys. No X-rated kissing on the morning show, I-24 News Morning Edition. Do not forget to join us in tomorrow morning. Check us out on the web, Facebook, Twitter, all those places for the social media. And of course, start your day tomorrow with another edition of the Morning Edition, because you just should. Thank you.